Hey, good evening, Internet. It's me, DP Knudten, for another Bookward Bound, my 301-day consecutive live stream journey from I should really do this to done. And that done is having entirely print-ready files uploaded to Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform so that I can self-publish a brand new book. And that book, as you saw in the graphic at the beginning of this video, is called Nonfiction Brand, Discovering, Crafting, and Communicating the Completely True, Completely You Nonfiction Brand You Already Are. Or actually, the Completely True, Completely You Brand You Already Are. Because that's the whole point. A nonfiction brand is not based on who you want to be. It's based on who you actually are. It's not some type of sticker you place on yourself based on whatever the popularity, whatever the popular thing is going on. It's actually what you care about, who you serve, and the way you do it. Or I like to shorthand it by saying who you are, what you do, and how you do it. Those are the three key pillars of nonfiction branding. And frankly, also your personal brand. And by personal brand, you're going to have to read the whole book to understand where that comes from. But I will give full credit to the brilliant business consultant, thought leader, Tom Peters. Now, if you're like me, you discovered Tom Peters when he came out with a book, and I think it was a TV series on PBS called In Search of Excellence, about business operations, the businesses that are really doing the kick-ass job when it comes to serving their customers and being true to themselves and building a business that wasn't just a purveyor of services or products, but something much more valuable. And I've been following Tom Peters ever since. And in I think it was 1997. And wait, I can look that up. Hold on. Because I'm actually writing about this in the book. I'm not a fiction brander. Syndrome. Hold on. I'm going to show you. This is the actual application I'm using to write this book. It's called Scrivener. SCRIVENER, Scrivener. And it's an application that allows you to write books in a way that is much more amenable to authors than, say, Microsoft Word is. So each of these things is a section. And I know I wrote about this someplace, about Tom Peters. So I'm going to do a search for Tom Peters. Because let me tell you, this dude is so damn good. Okay, so he appears in here, Tom Peters. Anyway, he came out in Fast Company magazine back in the day when Fast Company magazine was brand new, with an article that was actually a cover article or a cover story for Fast Company magazine called The Brand Called You. And I love that article. And I remember reading it in 1997 about this concept that he threw out there called personal branding. And anyway, I'm not going to find it, so let's just get past it to say that it's brilliant. And this book really riffs on all the concepts that he talked about in that article in Fast Company magazine, August of 1997, if I have it right. Tom Peters. If you don't follow him on, especially Twitter, he's really active on Twitter. If you don't follow Tom Peters at Tom Peters on Twitter, you should, because he's fantastic. Anyway, here I am. I'm writing a book about nonfiction branding based on the concepts that have been developed and promulgated by Tom Peters and many others about packaging yourself so that other people can understand who you are, what you do, and how you do it in a way that actually garners or earns you, I'm looking for the word, respect. That'd be one of those words. But also honor. There's an honor to being true to who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And I'm writing that book. I've got 301 days to do it since March 5th. Okay, so where's that 301 days come from? It actually comes from the fact that I decided to do this crazy project on March 5th, 2020, with the idea of, okay, from March 5th to January 1st, 2021, I should be able to write a new book. So that's what I'm doing live in front of you. So what am I doing tonight? I'm not exactly sure, because some nights I'll be writing, some nights I'll be designing, some nights I'll be outlining the book or capturing something new. But I think what I'm going to do is pay attention to the fact that I've got a very cool person who's agreed to be on my podcast, Nonfiction Brand, which comes out every Monday. And that is Jay Bear. Now, if you don't know Jay Bear, you should. And by the way, Bear sounds like bear, but it's actually spelled B-A-E-R. Jay Bear. He's got a bunch of books out. His latest is called Talk Triggers, and it's really great about creating those things that trigger talk from your clients, from your buyers, from your prospective buyers, and everything else. An example would be, and by the way, this is not an example I came up with. It's one that Jay Bear came up with, DoubleTree hotels. Now, if you've ever stayed at a DoubleTree hotel, you know one of their most popular features is their cookies. They're chocolate chip cookies that you can get. And all you need to do is go on to something like Twitter or Instagram, and you will see that people are actually hashtag DoubleTree or hashtag DoubleTree cookies or some variant thereof, talking about how they love to stay at the DoubleTree hotels because of the hot cookies, the cookies that they can get. That is a talk trigger. And that's a concept that Jay Bear has written a book about. And he's going to be on the Nonfiction Brand podcast. And I'm looking for, where am I talking about him? So again, back to Scrivener. I'm looking for the section I'm talking about him. And I think it's talking about creating a visual brand. What's your brand look like? There you go. Yellow flag. The yellow flag over on the side that you can see here means, hey, David, you've written some in this section, but you haven't finished it. And frankly, I haven't been able to finish it because I haven't talked to Jay Bear, for an hour, which is how I run my podcast, Nonfiction Brand. I get people on for an hour, and I divide it into 2 half-hour episodes that run on consecutive weeks. Well, guess what? Here we are on a Sunday, Memorial Day weekend in 2020, and I remember, the reality is, I remembered, you know what? I need to contact Jay Bear and his people because, believe me, Jay Bear has people that work with him. And I thought, I need to get in front of his people so that maybe my email will surface up to him so that I can get him on my podcast and then ask him questions, learn new stuff, and come up with brand new fodder that I can then write within this book. Well, I sent him an email, or I went to his website. I filled out his email web form. And the funny thing is, within an hour and a half, I got a response on a Sunday on a Memorial Day weekend from Jay Bear himself saying something along the lines of, sounds good, contact me at this specific email address, his personal email address. Cool, right? Right. So I contact him, and we're going to arrange a time for him to do the podcast interview and all that stuff. I'm very excited about that, but I'm mostly excited about the fact that I've made contact with someone who I consider to be really quite smart, who's got a lot of originality and has a lot to share with, me, obviously, but also with my audience on the Nonfiction Brand podcast, but who I also want to write about. In fact, here I've already started writing about him. And, I'm going to obviously flesh this out a great deal more. But Jay Bear is one of the best personal branders who've created a visual brand for himself. And let me read you some of this stuff. Jay Bear, lovely man that he is, has a chronic condition over which he has no apparent ability to control. The dude just cannot get enough plaid. So much so, if you happen to see a man strolling down the street or hallway wearing a colorfully loud plaid suit, it's probably him, and I'm not kidding. But before we go into too deep a discussion about the package, let's get a brief sample of the man inside. And for a complete look, head over to his website, blah, 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 jbear.com/aboutjay. So I'm writing about him in a very laudatory way, in a very positive way. And that's not because I'm trying to blow smoke. It's because I'm looking around the landscape of people who are personally branding themselves. And he's one of the few who's actually done that in a visual way that is completely consistent, completely aligned with who he is, what he does, and how he does it, and is very visual. I mean, literally. And you'll see what I mean if you get this book or if you check out jbear.com. The thing about Jay is some people might call it a shtick. On my bad days, I'd call it a shtick. His style, let's call it style instead of shtick, is to wear plaid suits. And not just kind of plaid suits, but plaid with a capital P suits. And he's got incredibly fun colored suits that stand out. And, he's a guy you look at him and go, oh, he looks like a guy who'd be a member of my bowling league. He's maybe carrying a few more pounds. He's not stunningly beautiful. He seems a little bit Midwestern in all its good and bad qualities. And I don't think you'd be wrong. And I don't think he'd disagree with you. But because he realizes that, he's kind of taking his game to the next level by coming up with a visual presentation of himself that is, 1, memorable, 2, strangely attractive, and 3, completely aligned with who he actually is. So I'm very, very thrilled to be able to announce ahead of time that I'll be interviewing him sometime soon for the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which comes out every Monday. And by the way, this is a Sunday. So tomorrow at 3 a.m. Central Time, there will be a new episode of Nonfiction Brand featuring Matt Barnett, the founder and CEO of Bonjoro.com, a one-to-one video via email service that, you really need to check out. But anyway, Nonfiction Brand, new one tomorrow. I'm here to talk about this dude, so Jay Baer. So I've started to write about him. And that brings us back to the packaging, those Technicolor test patterns. While not every personal brand goes to the extremes, comma, that needs a comma, Mr. Baer does when it comes to visual branding. Visual branding, period. I don't want run-on sentences. And most fully realized personal brands have some in color palette cues that differentiate it from its competitors. Okay, so I don't want to go too much further in this because I'm actually going to be talking to the guy. And that is fantastic. I'll be able to get information from him that nobody else has, because I'm looking at what he does in a different way than a lot of people do. Why? Because I'm looking at Jay Baer as a packaged good, as a, I don't know anything about his politics, his health status, or anything like that. But I have a series of impressions based on what I know about him in terms of who he is, what he does, and how he does it, that have truly, completely identified in my mind a space, a unique space within my mind that he occupies that no one else does. And that is what personal branding is about. All right, so, boom. I'm going to be interviewing Jay Baer. Yay for that. What am I doing to progress my book forward? Damn good question. Oh, man. I look over here on Scrivener. I got a lot of red flags. And again, blue flags mean I've written it. It needs to be proofed. Yellow means, hey, dude, you've written some of it, but it's not done yet. And red means you haven't done squat. So, what am I going to do to get rid of some of these red flags? Well, the answer to that is exactly what I did with Jay Baer. I'm going to contact them. I got to get out there and I got to put my fear aside. And by the way, I have tremendous fear that people are going to say, no, not into it, don't want to do it. Whenever I send them an email saying, I'd love to have you on my podcast. Because my podcast, I don't want to belittle it, but it's not exactly the Joe Rogan experience when it comes to the number of people listening or engaging with it. It's not This American Life, but it is 100% me, 100% what I want to learn from people, and 100% of what I want to share with an audience. So I'm thrilled that Jay Baer has agreed to come on the podcast and be included in this book. But I'm looking at other people like, oh my God, Scott Galloway. Okay. I'm going to get real. I'm going to tell you the truth about Scott Galloway. Okay. Do you know who Scott Galloway is? On paper, he's the clinical professor of marketing at NYU Stern School of Business. He's also the co-host of Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And now he has a brand new podcast called The Prof G Show. And he's also got a new show on Vice. Sorry, Scott, I haven't watched Vice, but I'm not sure I want to. But anyway, the guy is tearing up kind of the new media landscape. And I first saw him, I want to say like 7 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, doing a video where he just comes out and says, okay, we've got 25 minutes. I've got 200 slides. Let's go. Boom, boom, boom. And he just brings the heat over and over and over again. And by the end of it, you're going, holy crap. You haven't just opined or given me your opinions. You've proven it via deep, rich research. How can I not agree with you? And let me tell you, if you want a recommendation of a podcast that you must follow, it would be Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. It comes out every Tuesday and every Friday. And let me tell you, if you can get past the first one, you will love it. Let me tell you, it is a fantastic podcast. And the relationship between Kara Swisher, who is a tech reporter from the New York Times, and Scott Galloway, who is the Stern School of Business clinical professor of marketing, is electric. You know, he likes to call himself the big dog and call Kara the jungle cat. Well, there's a reason for that. They've earned it in the old phrase. Anyway, Pivot, one of my favorite podcasts. But Scott Galloway, okay, so as I said, here's the tea. My first book. Where's the copy of it? Here we go. Rotoma, the ROI of Social Media, Top of Mind, that I co-wrote with Spencer X. Smith, my colleague. Okay. When the book was about 90% done, I thought to myself, you know what? If this were being published by a legit publisher, this is about the time that they would send out galley proofs to other authors or thought leaders or editors or influencers to take a look at the book and see if they would blurb a great quote about the book that we could actually include with the book at the time of publication. So I thought I should do that. And here's the weird thing. I actually did. So I sent it out to only five people. 2 I considered top tier people. I mean, literally people who write best-selling books. And 3 who were at best B-level or maybe even C-level people, but I thought they might give me a blurb for my book. Well, out of those 5 people, 2 responded directly to me. And guess who they were? The 2 top tier people that I hoped would take a look at the book. One was Scott Galloway, NYU Stern School of Business, clinical professor of marketing. And the other was Ann Hanley of Marketing Profs, the first chief content officer, in the world. And that, more than 15 years ago. And both of them responded with a really great quote or blurb. So right there you can see Scott Galloway. And what he wrote was a book that starches the fluff from social media and helps managers allocate capital and find the unicorn among unicorns, ROI. What do you think I did when I got that email from Scott Galloway? Here's what I actually did. I walked upstairs. My office is in the bunker, the basement. I walk upstairs. My wife sees me and goes, "Oh my God, what happened?" And I said, "Stephen King just blurbed my first novel." Because to me, Scott Galloway is Stephen King when it comes to marketing, thought leadership, all that stuff. So for him to come back with a blurb like that was like amazing to me. So now, and by the way, this was several years ago, and his reputation continues to climb. You'll see him on Fox Business, on MSNBC, on CBS, on CNN. He was just on CNN with Anderson Cooper, and at the end of it, Anderson Cooper said, "Wow, I've learned so much in the past 5 minutes. I'd love to have you back on." That's how brilliant this guy is. So I need to pull my pants up and not be afraid to reach out to Scott Galloway and say, "Hey, Scott, you so kindly blurbed my first book in 2018. I'm writing a new one, and I would love to write about you, specifically in the way that you have taken your personal brand from known only by people who follow startups and stuff like that and turned it into a national brand. I want to write about that. Would you come on my podcast?" I got to get over my fear, but that's my point. I am afraid the same way that you are afraid to contact the people that you would love to engage with, to advance your career, to burnish your personal brand, to even create some type of relationship with. I'm as afraid as you are. But the difference between you and me is I'm old enough to say nothing ventured, nothing gained. If you ask a question, there are two possible answers, yes and no. If you don't ask the question, there's only one answer, and that is no. That's why I do a podcast. That's why I'm writing this book. And that's why I'm doing this live stream, even though I'm a little bit, let's just call it Memorial Day inebriated, thanks to Costco and Kirkland Irish whiskey. Sorry. Strange but true. To create a nonfiction brand is not necessarily to share everything about you, but it's to do what I call strategic authenticity, which is to share the cogent, concise parts of you that actually matter to other people. Fact is, you don't need to know about my health unless my health affects my brand. You don't need to know about my political leanings, although it's not going to be hard to divine if you have half a brain. You don't need to know the names of my children, although I don't mind sharing the names of my dogs. There's a reason for that. It's because I'm being strategically authentic. Everything that I'm sharing with you now is completely true at my peril. But that's the way I've rolled, and it's the way I've rolled since I was born. Yeah, I'm not one who fronts. I'm one who is. And who I is who I am. Anyway, that's enough for tonight. I've blathered on long enough, and I thank you for watching and listening. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which comes out every Monday. So today's Sunday, meaning tomorrow's Monday, and you can listen to the second half conversation I had with Matt Barnett, who is the founder and CEO of Bonjoro.com, a really, really cool one-to-one video via email service and application. Bonjoro, BONOJORO.com. Check it out, because here's the cool thing. You can have a completely free account on Bonjoro.com that allows you to do 50 videos per month that can level you up, level your personal brand up with anybody you care to try to engage with at a higher level. Check it out. Very, very cool. And check out the Nonfiction Brand podcast episode with Matt Barnett of Bonjoro.com. That's it for me tonight. I'm DP Knudten, as I said, and I'm going to let our theme music take us on out. That's it for me. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.